This game launched in May of 2019, initially as a VR game made by Steel Wool Studios. Scott was quite impressed with some of their previous work and decided to have them make a VR version of Five Nights at Freddy's. This was about a year after Scott launched Ultimate Custom Night, which people saw as the end of Five Nights at Freddy's. And I thought we knew better. So, when we first boot up the game, we're met with some expository dialogue that tells us that the previous stories were mostly not true and that they were made up by a crazy indie game dev, which had put a bad name on the Fazbear company, so they wanted to make a VR game to mock these stories and to shine a new light upon themselves. Seems simple. They wanted a clean slate so that new stories could be told. After this opening speech, we are put into the game. The available game modes include FNaFs 1, 2, 3, Dark Rooms, Night Terrors, Vent Repair, and Parts and Service. So, FNaF 1. I'd say this is a really faithful adaptation of the original. It is an amazing recreation of the experience we had back in 2014. For its ambience, I'd say the fear is amplified several-fold thanks to the VR setting. It is genuinely terrifying when Bonnie and Chica are seen walking right outside your door and then they turn to look at you. If that was me, oh nah, I'm out of there. The jump scares also do a good job, as many people have been genuinely frightened by them thanks to this game. In the older games, it's implied that they're biting your face and screaming, but here you actually get to feel that. And that feeling hits like a truck when in action. As for the gameplay, it's basically FNaF 1 without Golden Freddy. In terms of that aspect, I'd say the original is better, but overall, the VR experience makes the ambience so spooky, so I'd put it above the original FNaF 1. Only in VR though. Flat mode sucks. Next up, we have Five Nights 2. While for the recreation of the original installment, I said it was close between the VR one and the original one, for FNaF 2, no contest. VR is outright superior in terms of the horror aspect. In terms of difficulty, I'd say the original is better, but in terms of the atmosphere's ability to scare you, the VR version is miles better. Next up, Five Nights 3. Five Nights 3, in my opinion, was done justice in this game. I've always seen the original as extremely overhated, but in Help Wanted, it is actually scary. This time, we're actually able to look to the right side and see the vent that's supposed to be there. And just knowing that Springtrap could show up and I'd have to see him there, that sent shivers down my spine. I will say this though, the model used for Springtrap in Help Wanted isn't very good, to be honest. It looks more yellowish and the texture just kinda looks weird. Now you might be saying that it's a VR game and the textures can't be perfect. But I'ma just say this. If a mobile game can make a better model than your VR console or PC game, maybe you need to do something about it, Steel Wool. Anyways, after that we have Dark Rooms. Plush Trap and Nightmare Balloon Boy are essentially the same as the Plush Trap minigame from Five Nights 4, but in VR, which enhances the ambience a lot more, which is why I often revisit them in Help Wanted. They're both tense yet fun at the same time, as in, you're not so terrified that you want to stop playing, but on the other hand, the tension is building up, which does have an effect on the player. The Plush Baby minigame is kinda stupid in my opinion. To me, it's just kind of a troll game, and it's very good at annoying the player. And the Funtime Foxy minigame is pretty good. It's the same as in Sister Location, but in VR, and that adds a lot to the experience. Then we have Vent Repair. These have good atmospheric tension and build up. The dark background as you're frantically trying to finish your task with whatever tools you've been given, with little to no defensive resources, really elevates the horror and tension of these minigames. The gameplay just amplifies the impact of the atmospheric tension, which makes this a really scary one, in my opinion at least. Then we have Night Terrors. This one includes Circus Baby, Funtime Freddy, Nightmare On, and Nightmare Fredbear. The gameplay in these minigames, in my opinion, is quite basic compared to some of the others, but the atmosphere here is just perfect, which allows it to remain scary, and the added medium of virtual reality only helps to enhance the feeling of dread these games can make you feel. And the final challenge of this mode is Pizza Party, a minigame which is a jumbled maze of multiple locations we know all too well about from the previous games. This feels like a final challenge, like some sort of a boss fight without explicitly being called as a boss fight. The atmosphere here is just so tense, as it should be. And finally, we have Parts and Service. In my opinion, this is the worst game mode, in flat mode especially. In VR, it's much better, but to be honest, it is the weakest out of all the modes in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad by any means, and the atmospheric tension is definitely there. It's just that I think every other mode does it so much better than this one. On retries, this is like the most unengaging mode ever. It's so easy. With that said, let's talk about the characters in further detail. Pretty much most animatronics from every corner of the series makes an appearance in this game. The core 4 from the first entry make appearances in multiple modes including FNaF 1, Night Terrors, Parts and Service, etc. The FNaF 2 animatronics make appearances in FNaF 2, Pizza Party and... oh, that's it. Just like the relevance. Moving on. The Phantoms for FNaF 3 only appear in FNaF 3. Meanwhile, Springtrap appears in FNaF 3 and Vent Repair. The FNaF 4 animatronics appear in Dark Rooms, Night Terrors, and Pizza Party. The SL crew, meanwhile, appears in Dark Rooms, Night Terrors, Vent Repair, and Pizza Party. The Rockstars aren't in this game, but after their role in UCN and the fact that their personalities had been established, it's better to have them excluded out of these modes. And finally, we have Glitch Trap. Or Malhair, whatever your preference is. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, this to me is the best design for Afton. No joke. Like, I get the fact that Springtrap is a more iconic masterpiece of a design, but this one, in my opinion, is just as good, if not even better. It looks clean and polished, the dancing creepy Bernie persona is handled extremely well, and every time in the minigame selection screen, when he was at the back, he made sounds that were just eerie. Not like cartoonishly evil, more like something trying to reach out to you, to latch on to you, to learn more about you. FNaF doesn't usually go this route, so I was honestly surprised and caught off guard by this decision. It's creepy in its own way. After Glitch Trap, we have Tape Girl. I can't really talk about her without diving straight into the story. So, let's go into the lore section. So, when playing Help Wanted, oftentimes you'll find small tapes lying on the floor or the table. These are collectible, and you can actually listen to the audio recordings done with them. This is where Tape Girl comes into the mix. Remember how at the beginning of the game, we're told that the Fazbear company is making this VR game to shed some new light on them and to be more appealing to people? Well, Tape Girl reveals that it was all a lie, and that the rogue indie dev was hired by Fazbear Entertainment to make light of these real events. Basically, a cover-up story. And that during production of this game, the dev team had scanned some old circuit boards of the FNaF animatronics that Fazbear had provided them, which then led to the computer virus Glitch Trap or Malhair. This virus was deadly, as it had an adverse effect on the beta testers, including one such individual being Jeremy, who slowly but surely went from a normal person to a crazy person talking about hallucinations, except that the way he described them made them seem real, not a creation of the mind. This was Glitch Trap's way of infecting his mind. It's not exactly clear if after this Jeremy had survived or died due to the guillotine paper cutter in the back room. But after this point, the beta tester is switched to Tape Girl, who also spotted Glitch Trap. She tries to delete him from the game, but that fails. So she then decides to split his code apart into 16 parts. That being the glitchy tapes. The same ones you've been collecting all this time. And this realization comes during tape number 15, at which point it's pretty much too late to turn back now. Now, it is unclear whether Tape Girl is stuck in the game or is out in the real world with a possessed mind. Her voice acting isn't always the best in my opinion, but overall it gets the job done. So, thumbs up from me. So after that, we become the beta tester. And it is believed that she too had been taken over by the glitch trap entity, as she has conflicting instructions, and towards the end, the virus uses her to manipulate us to allow the entity to escape the confines of this game. Some people hated this story with burning passion. They didn't like how Afrin turned from bloodthirsty, rotten animatronic out for murder into an AI seeking to escape a virtual reality game. But there were others like myself who were okay with the story. To me, the Scott era of FNaF was over, and Help Wanted was a soft reboot for the franchise. A much needed reboot, mind you. Even though I love Scott's style of games, don't get me wrong, even I have to admit that eventually a change was needed. Scott tried it with Sister Location, but that game just ended up more like a visual novel with little to no difficulty pacing. And although technically Help Wanted still retains most of the original gameplay ideas, it explores them in a new light and makes them more interesting in different, and I might even say more terrifying ways in certain instances. So, let's talk about the endings. This game has 3 endings, about half of Pizzeria Simulator. The first ending is the Pizza Party ending, and in my opinion, it is the most terrifying one. After playing the nightmare-inducing hellish mode that is Pizza Party, you see that you're celebrating your birthday, with Bonnie and Chica off to the side. Then Glitch Trap calls you and lures you, and everything fades to black. The next thing you see is Freddy performing, but from his point of view. That's right, you've been stuffed into an animatronic and are now forced to perform and entertain people. And that's not all. As the credits plays, we see Glitch Trap dancing to your song. You're forced to helplessly watch on as your murderer dances to your song with joy. It is dark, like even for this franchise. Very few things in this series have even come close to this level of darkness. The next two are dependent on you collecting the tapes. Tape Girl gives you certain instructions to stop Glitch Trap from taking over your body. If you fail to follow said instructions, you body swap with Glitch Trap. Yes, he is now out into the world in your body. Just think about the existential crisis about this for a moment. But if you're successfully able to follow the instructions, well, you still don't technically win. You just end up trapped in the game, behind a locked door, forever. Basically, every ending is a bad ending. Now, we've talked about the base game. So, let's move over to the Halloween DLC, Curse of Dreadbear. I just gotta say, I loved the look for this update. I love the Halloweeny aesthetics of this and just how menacing Dreadbear looks. Some of the minigames, in my opinion, are just as, if not even better, than the ones in the base game. Minigames like Hallway, Corn Maze, and Build a Mangle are a real strong suit of this DLC. My personal favorite is Hallway, because of how terror-inducing it is. It immediately brings your thoughts back to the days of 2015 when you first played FNaF 4. The ambience here is so good that I'd put it to be even better than the original FNaF 4, which isn't an easy barrier to cross. The lighting is exceptionally well. The animatronics look like actual monsters that can rip you to shreds. I've seen many YouTubers being genuinely scared of this mode on first time playthroughs. It also reinforces why this game works really good in VR, but really bad in flat mode. Flat mode just can't amplify the impact of the visuals being displayed like VR can. This one isn't particularly difficult, so while it is scary, it won't take you too many tries, which is what prevents it from getting frustrating for the player. Dreadbear himself has a cool design in my opinion. Not the scariest in the series by any means, but still a possibly spooky addition to the series. Grim Foxy is also a cool design, just like Jacoboni and Chica from Five Nights at Freddy's 4's Halloween DLC. It's not as scary as the original design, but it's a nice recolor. Now, let's go over the bunny rabbit masks we find at the end of the corn maze minigame. This is the mask of Vanny, a person described as a reluctant follower. She becomes a character in the future, but not in this game. But she does have a relevant story around her. So, it's believed that Vanny was also infected by the glitch trap virus and is now out in the real world, roaming around with an infected mind. Many people believe that the beta tester we play as in FNaF VR is actually Vanny herself, or by her other name, Vanessa. If they're even the same character, trust me, it gets weird from here on out. We are actually able to find a glitch trap plushie earlier in the game, and when in the prize corner, we bring the Vanny mask and the glitch trap plush close together, they start to have a conversation. We only hear one side of this conversation, but by going in depth into Scott's website, we found out that this conversation is about Glitch Trap telling her to not stray away from the orders given by him and that she should have a costume ready, which she does, as we can see. At the end, the game shows us a massive building in construction, and it appears to be a Fazbear related one. That's right, it's a teaser for the next installment, Security Breach. One little side note before the video comes to a close. So, I kept mentioning throughout this video that the game is really good on VR but bad on flat mode. Well, that's because VR allows for a much more immersive experience than a flat screen on your desk. FNaFs 1, 2 and 3 in flat mode is some of the worst game modes I've ever seen. This is bad remakes of the original. That just makes it clear that this game was never meant to be ported to non-VR devices, but was ultimately done starting from December of 2019 so that more people could have access to it. A decision which I can certainly respect on its own right, but not one that can excuse the poor gameplay depth of flat mode. Anyways, if you're worried about Princess Quest, don't worry, that'll be covered in the Security Breach video. Anyways, that's the end of this video essay. Hope you enjoyed watching. These take a while to make, so I'd really appreciate if you can take the time to like and subscribe. It means a lot for my channel, and you can always reconsider later. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be signing off. See ya!